Um, good, af- good afternoon, everyone. Now I will present my presentation, Municipal Dreams, the Rise and Fall of Council Housing, by John Bolton. Now let's move on to the second slide. I will prepare this presentation divided into three chapters: introduction, case extension, summary, and conclusion. Now let's move on to introduction, chapter 1, book information. This book was published by Marshall in April 2018. It is divided into 10 chapters. Municipal Dreams presents an alternative history of the United Kingdom, which begins in the slum clearance of the late 19th century, and the aspiration of those people who would build a new. John Bolton looks how and why the state's duty to house its people decently, because central to our politics, traversing the nation. Bolton offers an architectural tour of some of the best and most remarkable of our housing estates, as well as many accountable ordinary. He shows how the loss of the dreams of good housing for all is a danger of the whole society. As he writes, the fire is happened on Grenfell Tower. Now let's move on to author introduction. John Bolton is a social historian whose blog Municipal Dreams is one of the most widely read and respected chronicles of council housing's past and present. He talks on housing to a wide range of audience and has supported a number of housing campaigns. He has previously published in the History and Labour History. Background: as we read, we can know as the author wrote the termed remains of Grenfell loom over North Kensington. Above all, the fire at Grenfell, as we can see the picture, the whole building, Grenfell, is burned. Is not only a personal tragedy to his friends and families, and all the other people died in the fire, but to many more, it symbolized a devastating facing a crisis in social housing. During the whole book, as I read the chapter 1, 5, 7, and 10, we can know this is a history of council housing development in Britain. Now we can see the history of council housing from from 8 pictures. It represented its period respectively. We can see the first before council housing and homes for heroes. Next, interwar slum clearance, meeting the post-war housing shortage. Next, a new urban version. During different period, the council housing has been developed. Now let's move on to pushing the boundaries and housing. Next, last one, the impact of the right to buy. We can see the author's arguments. The constant was the failure of the free market and private enterprise to build or provide the healthy and affordable or decent homes that our people the most important, the most why the ordinary people needed and deserved. This is started by Joy 2000 page 9. Relevant the next series and their supporters argued that cost housing impeded choice more negatively. That suggested it hinders the natural disciplines of the market. Maybe you will. This is also right. Maybe you can support in support. Let's move on to chapter 2. Case expansion. The first one is Keating building. This is a typical building, a tower block opened in 1959, designed by Dennis Lansdowne, offers another image of brutalism. This is another typical of brutalism. It's 16-story height and form. No matter its appearance, right reinforced concrete and with stone facing cladding made it stand out among the surrounding environment. What matters apparently was community and street life. So we can see in Keating House, his innovative cluster block designed for ordinary life, common service, and separate towers containing accommodation with cluster around it on each floor and meet or chat. Another one hesitation is heading west or waterside. Now you can see is generation of this district. The Bauhaus scheme promises just 543 affordable homes, of which only 256 are available for social rental. Many of them have left their house, their asset, effectively forced by the physical and emotional turmoil of the drawing out regeneration process. It's a long history. It's a long time to build or regenerate. So during this period, the people previously lived these buildings will become homeless. The family also become homeless family. Therefore, ineligible for any guarantee of in this project. We can cite the ordinary people. We can cite some words speaking by the native developer. You make it. You like. You are building for us, but it's for the private sector. It's not fair. This is not the personal or one typical things happening in generation process. Such regeneration projects have become more common in London in recent years. We can ask some questions. In this regeneration process, who should be blamed? who should bear their responsibilities for the ordinary people that develop becoming homeless. House housing is the typical developing in Britain. We can see another one compare with another country. We can see. So I do some research in my country. Talented housing and public rental housing in Shenzhen, China. I think there will exist some prevalent phenomenon in different countries, in different developing period. As we can see, the case talented housing and public rental housing. The people who meet the government's need, all the politics, all other demanding things. We can see that divided into the following two categories: the register waiting list of residential housing can be found on the Housing Security Service. The other one is leading tenants who meet the following requirements. That's what I said. This process is the government make effort to provide homes for their people. This is and we can see another case: welfare housing distribution. This is a typical period happening in China history. Welfare housing distribution is a unique form of housing distribution in planned economy after the founding of the People's Republic of China. In the market economy, houses are valuable. If you want to buy a house, you need to pay the money. But in the planned economy, everything is depending on our government. The state uses part of these surplus values to build the houses by government companies and institutions. The actual rent paid by residents is far more lower than the cost of the construction and maintenance. The distribution of the houses is actually a kind of welfare housing distribution. So that's called the process item is welfare housing distribution. Now let's move on to chapter 3, the last one. Summary and conclusion. Review the municipal dreams, the whole book. During different period, there existed various typical council housing. The author presented them for us. I think it will represent the typical policy and economic changes in various historical periods. Another conclusion: there existed many efforts to house the people during the history of council housing. I agree with the conclusion. Maybe is the author's conclusion. If you have some questions, we can argue with that. The last one is references. Thank you. Thanks for all of you listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jin Liang, also for being the only person to work on your own, which is a challenge in itself. You're right to just mute for a second because I can hear myself, Jin Liang.
Oh, yeah.
Can you mute for a minute? Just turn your microphone off. Thank you. I'll start. That's okay, David. I mean, what I would say is there's clear thought in your presentation. You have read this. I can tell that you've read it and you've tried to make sense of it, and even at some point started to bring in quite intellectual kind of conversations around the political context, for example, how the political context changes and the effects that have on public housing. But I think there is a layer still of detail that is missing. It's like you've almost brought to the fore a set of ingredients on a menu, but they're almost still foreign to me. I don't know yet the details. For example, you know, by bringing out at the beginning the history of council housing and summarising quite succinctly some interesting points around the right to buy, the Homes for Heroes, what the history was before council housing. We need to see what these kind of titles connect to. What is this historical context that you're looking at? You need to explain that to me, because when I then see your comparisons, which I think are really effective, and if you're going to continue this for your essay work, I think it's really interesting for you to bring in these comparisons in Shenzhen and these different kind of political histories which form these different kinds of council housing, if you like. I can't understand the comparison fully enough because I don't yet have the kind of historical context that you're working to. So you talk about Grenfell. We talk a little bit, you talk about, say, Barratt Homes, but you don't tell me, these are snippets into a kind of real depth of like the history of council housing and its gradual privatization in this country that I would really like to see more of, in order that if we get to the level of detail of understanding why Grenfell was such a crisis, under what kind of political contracts, if you like, did this kind of disaster emerge from, under what kind of ownership? You know, I think that's a really important word here, ownership. Did this kind of disaster emerge? We can start to understand the kind of context around which the author is clearly, you know, trying to write a history of. And then you can start to make that comparison with greater ease, because I know that you can see these differences and it's clear in some of your summaries, but you need to show me that. I really need to see that. David, have you got anything you would like to add?
Oh, I'm busy reading here, Simon. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to take up a point that Simon made. I can't offer you very much at the moment because I have a big share in this. I follow John Borton all the time. He's got a Twitter site and he's always publishing new discoveries in council housing. So it's like an exploration. He comes across housing that is now private, and he then finds it was once council housing, social housing. So it's an ongoing PhD, you know, times 10, and he teaches the world really through Twitter. He's one of these experts. So can I give you some things to write down that I'd like you to do? If you think you know something else, well, do it. But first of all, would you please make sure that you have John Borton on Twitter? All right. Hello?
Yes, I got it.
Yeah. And will you also please pick up his blog? It's the same sort of thing. He recently has been looking at some Welsh examples, Llandudno, I think. Or he just sort of discovers these houses, and it's just beautiful. Now, it's not, the theory is very easy. The houses were social. They were, if you like, part of the local authority policy. And local authorities couldn't be the landlords anymore. They couldn't look after these houses. So they sold them off to the private sector in the in the 1970s under Margaret Thatcher. So it's happened. Anyway, the first thing I'd like you to do is know more about John Borton and his evolving, you know, kind of discovery of council housing, that, you know, right next to you is a council house. Good. Secondly, I would like you to take seriously what I've posted. There's a new book on vertical urbanism in China. And chapter 1 on page 3 seems very good. You can get a screenshot of that if you like. No, you don't need it. I put it there. And I've also posted Nippon TV's fantastic Ghost Castle documentaries as well. These are private developers, as you know, who have to work within the context of China, where there is no land ownership. So private developers have to lease the land on which they build, and they're always going bust. So they can't do it, and people can't move into their properties. So that would be very good. And I think you have the most beautiful 3,000-word essay from today's work. Please, please follow this through. That's all I can say. Just make sure you know you've got a beautiful comparison. You could take parts of vertical urbanism, or you can use these YouTube documentaries as your text. Is that okay? Can I hear your voice?
Yes, I got it.
Do you see? So the first 1,000 words will be on the municipal dreams, all right? Yeah. Which you can do. You need to do a little bit more work. I'm going to put the question to you. When I read your essay on municipal dreams, I need to understand what is going on. What does rise and fall? What was rise and fall? You don't explain it, you know? What is the fall? What is the fall? How much, you know, is it a fall? So you have to do that. I think you really do, you know? Yeah. It's like the death and life of great American cities. You know, what is this death and life, you know? We do need to know that.
Yeah. And it's like you're almost throughout the presentation, you're dancing around, you're touching on the kind of political contexts of these houses. You need to make that clear. You know, is it related to that? And if it is, then tell us how. Yeah. You know, there's just, the skeleton is there. Yeah. And I think the comparison is a really interesting one. Yeah. Give us the detail, you know, really pull it out, spend time on it. You know, like spend time.
You could write more than 3,000 words. We're really, really happy, you know. But please do 1,000 words on rise and fall. All right, of council housing in the UK. We've got to find out what it means. All right, and you can find all sorts of sources on that. Give some examples of rising, and then what is falling. Now, it's not easy to show examples of falling, but the book does start with Grenfell Tower, basically the fact that local authorities was actually still trying to run council housing in Grenfell Tower. So council housing didn't fall. It caught fire because local authorities tend to be very snobbish. So they wanted to dress up the tower so it didn't look kind of like a tower in a kind of third world country. And the cladding on the tower was made of plastic, which would only catch fire if you applied fire to the outside, which would never ever happen, except somebody pushed a fire vent to the outside when he was cooking. So his vent had a flame in it, and the flame caught the cladding and the whole thing went up. So the impossible happened, you know. So please have a look at that. Don't spend too long on it, and then choose your examples, maybe 3 good examples of Chinese ownership patterns, ownership, private, state-owned. You won't really get any private, but there is a kind of private, you know, and state-owned. All right, and you can make some really good comparison. You're sorted out. You're just sorted out. You're done.
Yeah.
This is okay. You're one of the few people who I can clearly say, just, you know, you've got the 2 texts, you've got the front cover on your work, and I've given you a front cover and video. Please, all of you, use video. You know, flip the subtitles into your language. Just get the information. It's really good. And I'd treat that as a text anytime. All right.
Okay.
The ghost, there's quite a lot on ghost castles. There's a video on artists who started to use the ghost castles for other purposes, turning them into galleries, you know, and other places. So, you know, try and stay with the subject. You've got a great subject. It makes for a good 3,000 word essay. Please try and get good comparisons on the page. Images. You're a bit short of images there. I mean, you had images. And please always use page numbers and citations, quotations. Simple things, all right? And
Yeah.
Please write a contents at the beginning of your 3,000 words to say what you are going to do.
Okay.
Is that right?
Right.
Are you in the UK?
Yeah, I'm in UK.
Yeah, well, your camera's very out of focus.
I'm sorry about that.
You're kind of blurry manzao.
Yeah. I know this program. My camera is hitted. I was hitted it on the wall. By not on purpose.
Anyway, I'm happy that you've had a chance to do this, and I think that we've been able to kind of take you further. Please send us your PowerPoint script. But in your case, I'd like to put your PowerPoint script in with your essay and try and get you the best marks.
Okay, I will email you now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, this is really fantastic. But please, if you want to, you can add to that script. Yes, there's this text, but John Bolton keeps on going. You know, he's the machine that keeps on working. Today, he's found some more council houses. You know. Now, when I go out with my friend Jim Dyson, the architect who used to work on this course, we go council house spotting, you know? It's a great thing to do. Many of them now are not council houses, they're private, but yeah. So a great subject. Elaine Harwood, if I put her in for you there, she's published a couple of very beautiful books on mid-century modernism for the modernist society. And I think it's called Mid-Century Modernism, just good case studies as well. All right. It's just rather beautiful. All right. But you've got plenty on digital media. That's that. So good. Any questions?
Do you have any questions? Yeah.
Any questions, you guys, you know, like about things I've been saying about essays or something you think I haven't been clear about that relates to your, you know, issues? Anything at all? You can see what I've done, can't you? I've just suggested he's got all the building blocks. He's got all the materials delivered to build a 3,000 word essay. He's got a bit of work to do. You know?
Yeah.
But it's a nice comparison, you know, bang, bang. And you might even find a really nice Chinese digital site selling properties. Yes. You know, just give me a translation, please. You know.
Uh,
In the two video texts I've sent you, there's quite a lot of Chinese in that, if that's useful to you. Okay.
okay.
They might even be the same video, but hey, I did it quite quickly.
Increase Mr. You said the two video. Can you share the links in the chat box so I can open?
All right, having a bit more, are we? Yeah.
So I will open.
We got the time. Yeah, just
Yeah.
tell us something then, please. Great. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you share the link.
Well, yeah, share something with us then if you think you know.
Yeah.
Can you share? Maybe open the media, then find the media and share.
Okay.
The video is very good on the function of the state. It shows some activists trying to protest and the police trying to break them up, you know. So there's some very good stuff there on the kind of the residents and their relationship with the state. You can use all of this.
Okay. Okay.
What we don't want is any of you student guys, you know, to say, I didn't think I could do this, you know. Just do it and make a mistake. Do it, make it, present it. Then we can cut into it. And we can say, well, you didn't use that very well. You could use it better. You get a chance to revise it. But give us the materials. Don't say, oh, I didn't think you could use video. Someone said that to me, and I thought, you know, you can have urbanism from a pair of shoes. You know?
Yeah, I know.
So give us the materials. Make sure you've got good links, you know. Now, how are you doing for sharing? Because we're not getting anywhere yet.
I share in the chat box. I have already said. Okay.
All right.
Is it this link in the comments?
Just a link. I see. It's just a link. Aha. All right. Well, this is a whole lot of foreign language product.
Benefits subroom.
Oh, well, that's an interesting. Oh, wow. I see what you've done here. Okay, I'm with you. I see. Right. So you think we should be getting a bit of this, as in this. All right. And this. I'm going to sound on it. All right. Don't use much of this, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
It's too manufactured. This is a commercial element. So yeah, but you could put it in. It looks to me as if we've got the corporate answer or corporate element in this debate. Yeah, I don't know what he's saying.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. So that's going to appeal to. I'm going to stop presenting it because it's not my job here. But yes, you know, use these parts. All right. You won't find anything exactly to go with council housing. I think there are some interesting examples though in Europe, but you've decided to choose an Asian, a Chinese paradigm. You know, a comparison. Yes, just do it. All right. Use as many sources as you can. Just go easy on the cartoon animations, because they're going to be basic user videos, and they won't really allow us to do much critical discussion. But have that too, you know.
Include these in your bibliography as well, your references, of course.
Please,
so
yes.
like, let us know every single page you visit.
Yeah,
because that in itself is a tracing.
Yes, list them like your books. It's no problem. Okay.
Okay.
I suggest for part 1 that you have about 10 examples of council housing, rising, rising, falling, falling, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then while you're doing that, start working on your Chinese paradigm, you know, for some examples. Now, you don't need many examples. You could choose just 1 or 2, all right, and explain. And then you want a really good conclusion, you know, to explain why they work together.
You asked good questions on slide 2.2. I think it was about the responsibility.
Yeah.
These are good questions. So follow these questions up, because this is linked to ownership. This is linked to the kind of political frameworks that will work really nicely in a comparison between a centrally planned economy and a free market economy.
Yeah.
And then where do we go from that? You know, that's what you are to find out. That's what you are to tell us. But there's a really interesting difference there. So,
writing, please look up Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher. I don't like to write this name anymore. I like to write Boris Johnson. Please look up Margaret Thatcher and council house sales. All right, you'll find other examples. They may be put it simple, sales, and then you might also find some things in the bibliography of John Borton as well. Council house sales. All right. I can tell you that I can write a little bit about this. I bought my first apartment in Kingston-on-Thames, and it was an ex-council flat, an apartment. Very cheap, very big, really beautiful. Then the local authority decided that some of us were private and some of us were in council housing. So we were mixed up. You wouldn't know. And then on the same staircase, the drug dealers came in the council house. And they didn't go to bed during the night. They slept during the day. They were like foxes. And we had a young baby, so I had to move out. So I had a beautiful apartment, but I had to leave. And we found we were getting very big bill charges for gardening on a Sunday. So people coming along, doing the gardening on a Sunday, we had to go. So our next house was another ex-council house in Surbiton. And my neighbours on both sides of me were still with the council, paying a low rent. But I bought my house. I bought it at £80,000 and I sold it for £250,000. Private ownership. And then from there, I came north to Stockport, Manchester, you know. So very interesting. And the house I'm in now was a private house and is still a private house. So it's taken me 2 council houses to get a private house, you know, but both of them were private. This is a very common story. So there's some very interesting things there, you know. You can talk to me about my politics, but all you could do really is say, well, you had such low pay as a teacher. What can you do? You know?
No.
You know, I bought. I didn't buy the council house off the council. Someone else did before me. They'd done the transaction, and they were doing it to make a profit.
Excuse me, sir. I can use one word to summarize the council housing. It is built by the government or the local government or other public sector in the government. This empty house is people. The council housing is built by government to house its people.
Yeah.
It's ordinary people.
It's local government. It's local decisions, local authority decisions. Yeah, and it became impossible for them to be landlords because they had to fix the roofs and the gutters and the sewers. They couldn't afford it, so they wanted to just get rid of it, you know, and pass it to the private sector. I've sent you an interesting link, actually. If you go up the page, it's called, you weren't expecting that, it's called Lane End. Now, Lane End is a good case of a low-cost private builder. They build lots of small houses that are only privately owned, and they have some low-cost housing in their stock, but they are not council housing. But they're building kind of on a model of council housing. Interesting. So check them out. But that is because the nice thing about your topic is you're constantly going in and out of council, government and private, you know, and this book does as well. You have to mention it all in one go. You can't just write about council housing. So, you know, it's all wrapped up together.
Yeah. So it would as well be a good exercise to be accurate with the kind of the politics of the time. You know, be careful with what kind of political party are in power at the particular period that you're writing about, because they have at different times different motivations, different incentives, and ultimately then different structures. So be clear with that at what period you're talking about. Why have this series of formerly council houses become privatized? Why, in a later period, is there a need or desire or a want for more council housing? You know, what kind of economy has been happening in the meantime that has caused a housing shortage? You know, there's a lot of context to just keep this wrapped to not get too lost in the kind of changes of hands between various governments with various incentives. On
your screen, I'm obviously sharing while Simon's talking. I think we're both on the same page here. This is Lane End, very interesting. Welly Hospital, Wigan, they're doing repurposing, conversions, aren't they? You know, they're building these units, but many of them rely on motor vehicles, and they are non-density projects, because they're buildings that allow for private ownership of each unit. They're sort of semi-detached, I suppose, but they should really, city centre housing should be a minimum of 6 stories, you know, and that isn't very popular. So it's kind of an interesting story there. The other side of it is I'm out of that. The other side of it is this, which is really it's Twitter again. Do you know what that is? The don't say. Anyway, let's see if we can find it for you. It's in share. Let me share it with you, and it's called Shit Planning. Oh dear, oh dear. There it is. That's it. Did you build that, students? Shit planning. It's just hours and hours of fun. Well, you obviously didn't appreciate that as fine architecture. What about that? Do you like that? Okay, so you like it. So what about that? Oh, no, come on. Private housing.
There may be some.
Is that? Yeah, there's some good reason why there's a wall. There was a party wall by the door. Someone was building it on the outside. You could just have hours of fun with shit planning. Where's the other ones? Noble Games. That's so good. Look at that. As a goal on a football pitch. It gets better. I promise you. Look at that for levels. And they kind of levels and all that bollocks. You'll just have to learn a different type of English. What do you think of that then, everybody? Oh, dear, oh dear. Is that good? Is that what you're supposed to do? Anyway, you got the point. Yeah.
So we will tie it up there, Jin Liang. Thank you very much. As we say in summary, good skeleton there.
Yeah.
Clear, thing to work with. Just please give us a detail now. Yeah. And don't shy away from just telling us things. There's a lot there, and there's snippets where it's clear that you're making understanding, but don't fear just telling us. Writing all of that down and bringing it together and giving us the detail that we need. We really need some more detail. So there's something to work with there. So thank you very much. We're going to move on now to Yichen Meng and Pengyu Liu, who will be presenting Rebel Cities from the Right to the City to the Urban Revolution. So we're very excited to see this one from you guys. When you're ready, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So hello everyone. I'm going to present David Harvey's book of Rebel Cities, From the Right to the City to the Urban Revolution, with my classmate Peng Yu. And first of all, I will walk you through David's voice to get a sense of how Harvey received the city of New York.
I think the idea of a socialist future would be to say that we could come on this spot in 30 years' time when the world has become totally socialist, and we would look at all of this and say, oh, well, I don't know, that was all done in that crazy period where financiers kind of ruled the world, and now they've all been sort of overcome, and these are now kind of monuments, if you like, to stupidity. Of a certain era in which the ultra-rich were so rich that they didn't know what to do with their money except to build things like this.
Oh. And we're going to talk about this book in 4 parts, which are the introduction of the book and author. The second part are the book skeleton. We will briefly speak about the all chapter of this book, but particularly emphasize the chapter of urban root of capitalist crisis and reclaiming the city of anti-capitalist struggle. The conclusion will be followed by the Studio A and criticism. So this book was published 9 years ago, to count it from now. And this book is speculated on the process of urbanization from a political perspective, and discuss the role of the city in the process of capital accumulation and revolutionary politics. And then the introduction of Harvey. He was born in 1935. He's a British-born Marxist economical geography podcaster. So you can find a lot of his podcast. And then distinguished professor of orthography and geography at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. He received his PhD in the geography from the University of Cambridge in 1961. So I will start it with the division from Lefebvre. So David initially hinted his point, his position at the very beginning of the book from his description of the place, the Palais Italy Square in Paris. And his word he used, such as a threatening to the invaded old city, the soulless high-rise public housing, is sort of giving already a taste of his point. And as you can see from this block, there's a large block of buildings surrounded. And then he especially mentioned this illustration he used in the condition of postmodern of his book. As you can see here, the text actually says in English is without return and or deposit. And then he used the film from Jean-Luc in 1967. We can see there's a visualization in this in this picture in the film, that the background is Paris. We can see the building. It looks like a block back there. It could be any other building in any other city. And then he used a very strong voice from Lefebvre, or from his book of The Right to the City, which is published at the same year of this movie. And then The Right to the City is ideas being taken up by the social movement at the May '68 movements as a working class movement in Paris. We can see here there's quite a conflict between the police and then the working class. And then he also analyzed the Lefebvre study of the Paris Commune and published in 1965. In his context, he described that in the advanced capitalist world, the factories has no longer exist. The importance and an ever-expanding labor of sustaining urban life is increasingly done by the insecure, often part-time and disorganized low-paid labor. So, which means are these people who is working on it are very low-paid people. And then he raised a problem here. Oh, sorry. And then he used the example. He posed the example in China. He takes China as an example of the relationship between urbanization and then the urbanization in China. The village has transformed to urban very quickly in 2 decades. So the rural population declined by 25%. Here you can see. And then at the same time, he raised a problem saying that the right of the city is empty signifier. Everything depends on who gets to fill this meaning. And so who gets to fill this meaning? It can be everyone. Everyone has the right to fill it. It can be developers, financiers, and as well as the homeless or those low-paid people. And then he used the voice of Marxist. He says, between equal rights, the force decides. So as I understood this is saying that the capitalist ground is so high that it's over controlling the voice of the people under it, which what they say is over them. And then he also used so understand it the name of the right is actually an empty signifier. So is it pursuing of the right to the city? Is it pursuing of a cinema? He asked the question. But the answer is in a very physical level. It may be yes, but the political.
Sorry, can I jump in? Hello.
Yes.
A chimera is a big difference. A chimera is a kind of like a ghost.
Yeah. So it's something not.
Yeah, not cinema. Yeah.
Chimera. Yes.
Yeah, chimera. It's all right.
Chimera.
You're doing
chimera.
really well. Fabulous. No problem.
And then he was so he was saying that the political struggle are still animated in the city. So there are members group of low-income tenancy in community of color fighting and homeless people organizing for the right for housing and basic service, and LGBT youth of color working for their right and safe public space. And then he would mention a concept from Lvov of heteropia. In his theory, it describes as the spontaneous coming together in a moment of interruption when the disruption of a heterotopia group suddenly see, if only for the fleeting moment of the possibility of collective action to create something radical different. And as I understand this, is sort of saying that this coming together space in the public area, and whether it's a square or street, the creating a sort of like a community, which can be called a heterotopic space, which function for pursuing, helping people to pursuing their needs in the city. And then he finished this chapter with claiming the right, the whole capitalist system of the perpetual accumulation along with a associated structure of exploitative class and state power has to be overthrown and replaced. So he's very strong in saying that. And then claim the right to the city is a way station on the road to that goal. It can never be end itself, even if it increasingly look to be one of the most perpetuous paths to take. So at the same time, it's setting a hope. So I now welcome my my classmate Peng Yu talks about the next part.
Sorry, Peng Yu, you are muted.
Yeah, sorry. Before I introduce the chapter 1, I will ask a question. What kind of city we want? Yeah, Chen Lu.
Yeah, I think it's kind of related to our first lecture. I think city could more care about people's well-being, and I think diverse people can have the right, have the well-being. Yeah, and it's safe and accessible to everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for Chen Lu's answer. So actually, this question depends on this 5 question. It's about what kinds of people we want to be, what kinds of social relation we seek, what relations to nature we cherish, what style of life we deserve, and what aesthetic value we hold. So the right of city, it is the right to change and reinvent the city more after our heart's desire. It's a collective rather than an individual right. It's the freedom to that way to make or remake ourselves and our city is one of the most precious human rights, but it's one of the most we neglected. How best then to exercise that right? At the beginning of the chapter 1, the author told us we live in an era when the idea of human rights has become central to policies and issues. We devote considerable political resource to advancing, protecting, and illustrating the importance of multiple human rights in order to build a better world. Most of the concepts of human rights we expound are based on individual rights and private property rights. We do not fundamentally challenge the market logic of hegemonical liberalism and neoliberalism, nor do we fundamentally challenge the legitimacy of neoliberalism and the mode of state action. We can see some examples in Paris and New York City. Bonaparte brought Hamsun to Paris, take charge of the public work in 1853. When they do the city plan, Haussmann said that not wide enough. You have it 40 meters wide, but I want it to 120 meters. In fact, Haussmann used a Keynesian system using debate formation to improve the city infrastructure so as to solve the problem of surplus capital outlay. The system worked very well for some 15 years, and it entailed not only a transformation of urban infrastructure, but a construction of a whole new urban way of life and the construction of a new kinds of urban personnel. So Paris became the city of light. So we can see from the left two pictures, this is the same era of Paris before and after the transformation. The great center of consumption, it became a great center of consumption, tourism, and pleasure. They have the cafe, the department store, the fashion industry. The grand expansion all changed the urban way of life in ways that could absorb vast surplus through cross-consumerism, which often did traditionalists and include the workers alike. And it was also broke up at 1868 after all Paris Commune arose. And from the red picture, it is Robert Moses, who was World War II due to the whole New York metropolitan design, what Haussmann have done to Paris. And we compare the two pictures, two city building, we can see that it's difficult for us to find different from Paris and New York. Also, the New York through the transformation of high system and infrastructure, through Symbolism, through the reconstruction the city and the whole metropolitan area to absorb surplus products, and then they solve the problem of absorbing surplus capital. This is how the modern Paris buried its street, because there are many voices said the Paris is nowadays Paris, they are easy to bury, and they are as a means of multi-control of rebellion citizens. At the same time, so with urbanization, the city come into a building boom. In the midst of a flood of improved shared migrant converting on city as a rural personality is deposited through the industrialism, commercialism of agriculture. So we can find that the quality of urban life has become a commodity for the wealth. And all of those become the new liberal. So the new liberalism is good or not? It's a question. And for the second part, the urban root of capitalist crisis chapter is one of the most important and complex part of this book. So he split this chapter into 8 episodes. Before talking about these episodes, he started with a background of the housing crash in 2017 to 10 in the U.S. Also, basically about the World Development Report released in 2009 and react on this housing bubble issue. It's very complex. I made a diagram. If you're interested, I'll share it later. So I'll jump this part. So the straightforward to the Marxist perspective. So the first episode, Marx is talking about dispossession here, and his theory is that the soaring rent are the barbaric deprivation of the working class by capitalists and landlords. And then the landlords, they would have set the population of the space within the city through the gentrification, high-end condo construction, and Disneyfication to against the barbaric homelessness, the real problem, barbaric homelessness and lack of affordable housing and degrading urban environment for the mass of population. And he briefly speaking about a credit system. The credit system is absolutely necessary for capital circulation, and at some accounting the credit system has to be incorporated into the general law of the motion of the capital. And he also mentioned that the fictitious capital, the sentence of fictitious capital is kind of like a credit relationship. In Marxist Capital describe it is a surface phenomenon that disguises something important about underlying social relation. And there are 4 examples of the formation and flow. And it's those flows are converted to real into the unreal estate, as the diagram shows here. So bank lend money to state, lend to the landlord, to the public, like social, like housing, a school, and the bank lend money to the business bank, the investment bank. For the Marx, of course, the only place where value and surplus value are created is in the labor process of the production. And what goes on the infectious capital circulation may be social necessary to sustaining capitalism. It may be part of the necessary cost of production and reproduction. So this part, he's basically saying this is necessary, is something he cannot escape in this circulation of how capitalism operates. And then the second episode about the urbanization, capital accumulation through urbanization. He argued it has been a key of absorption of a capital and labor surplus throughout the capitalism in its history. It has a particular function in the dynamic of capital accumulation because the long working period and the turnover time and the long lifetime and most investment in the building environment. And these physical, like infrastructure investment, such as the railway and highway or dam, is kind of like a behavior of urbanization, but also a tool of absorbing capital and labor surplus. And then he talks about investment. When he talks about investment after 1945, there's a system called Keynesian, which Pen Yu mentioned in the first part. Because this the Keynesian style of intervention, the cycle movement has changed, as we can see in this chart. This chart is Robert in a detailed study of many local building cycle and published in 1976. He identified, as you can see, there's a small hill as a cycle in this circulation, and each mountains are 19.7 years. And then we can see when the Keynesian system came through in the 1945, it's sort of break up this cycle. also there's a little bit effect of after the World War II. As you can see, there's a red line here. And then he mentioned the 2007 to 10 crisis, how the BRIC countries behaved in the to face this crisis, which is being damaged less than the others, the typical capitalist country. And then he in this episode he also talks about fictitious capital and fiction that cannot last. It is quite different, related with mortgages and then a premium buyer and credits and stuff like that. But I'll speak briefly about the just about the fictitious capital and fiction that cannot last. The main point here is that the fictitious capital is inevitable in the cycle of investment. When the housing crisis occurs, the bottom buyer, which is the no matter is the premium buyer or sub premium buyer, they will be the one that hit the most. So they will lose more money than the people on the top. Then the author mentioned the production of the value and urban crisis. Because the most of the real estate markets is purely speculative, but the production activity itself is an important part of the entire economy. The construction industry accounted for 7% in the GDP, and then all the related accessories, such as car and furnitures, and accounted for more than double of that. So it's still a very important part. And then the problem. So after the World War II, the military returned to the unemployment and then depression. They call it one stone, two birds method, which is to build massive housing construction and then also suburbanization, and then couple the better paid worker into conservative policies by debts, encumbered home ownership. As you can see in this chart, during 1950s and 1960s, this policy actually worked. And then in 2011, the unemployment rate in construction stood above like 20% compared to the rate of 9.7% in the manufacturing, that is very close to the nation average. And which means there's no need to build a new home and fill them with things when there's so many homes is still standing empty. Then the problem back in 1960 was that the spurring of urbanization process was dynamic, but both environmentally unsustainable and geographical uneven. The unevenness is largely reflect to the differentiated income stream that flow to a different segment of the working class. While the suburb thrived, the inner city stagnated and declined. The white working class flourished, but the impact the inner city minorities. They are the African American in particular, they did not. That's why they had this huge movement there. And then the production of the value and urban crisis also, he mentioned, he used the words from Warren Buffett, said that from the perspective of the capitalist, saying, sure, there is a class warfare, all right, but is my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we are winning. The only question he stated here is, when will the people start to wage class war back? And then when it's connect to the next and connects to the next episode is about predatory urban practice. So in the Communist Manifesto, Marxists and Engels note that in the past, in passing that, no sooner does the worker receive his wages in cash than he stands upon by the other portion of bourgeoisie, the landlord and the shopkeeper and the pawnbroker. So which means when they get their very minimum money, and then there is another buyers or waiting behind them to rob their money, and there are several examples mentioned in the books talking about how what happened in the past in America, and then he uses. The China story is a very special case of Harvey wanted to look at because it's kind of like a different political background system. So he mentioned that the fearlessness of urbanization and the infrastructure investment booming that is completely reconfiguring the geographical of Chinese nation space rests in part of ability of the central government to intervene renew the bank system if any goes wrong. So the central government has total power on it, and then but the same results, the city efforts have helped the government infrastructure and the real estate spending surpass foreigner trades as the biggest contributor of China's growth. And extensive land acquisition and displacement of legendary proportion in some of the major cities, as many as 3 million people displaced in Beijing over last 10 years. As here we can see, it was for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. So the government actually forced, sort of like in a force to replace people in somewhere else and to build these facilities for showing the better image to the world how Beijing is. And then, so we have the big question, of course, whether there's a state expansion, expenditures fall into the category of the productive or not, and then if so, the productive of what and for whom. And there's two examples he explained. The high-speed train between Shanghai and Beijing maybe is fine for the business people and the middle-class people, but does not constitute the kind of affordable transport system that takes care of the workers back to their rural region during the Chinese New Year. And another similar example of the high-rise apartment block, gated community, and a golf course for the rich, along with the high-end shopping mall. It did not really match in the same city where the low-income people lives. And then also the Chinese solution, they call it decentralizing. So this policy created a huge gap between rich and poor. So, and this chart demonstrated the share of a nation income earned by the top 10% of the population has increased from 27% in 1978 to 41% in 2015, while the share of earned by the bottom 50% has dropped from 27% to 15%. The bottom 15% of the population used to have about the same income share as the top 10%, while the income share now is about 2.7 times lower. So there's a huge gap between rich and then poor. Rich become richer and poor become poor. And then he almost asking, is this model fails? Because China always claims that we're having a socialist system. And then the future of the capitalism is dire indeed. he closed it with the reproduction of capital passes through process of urbanization in myriad ways, but the urbanization of capital support the capacity of the capitalist class power to domain the urban process. Their lifestyle, as well their labor power, their culture, and their political value, as well as their mental conception of the world, that level of control does not come easily, if at all. Okay, chapter 3 is all around the start and surrounding the tangent of the commons by Great Harding. It describes a metaphor of cattle pressured on a piece of common land. The owners individually gain from idle cattle, while any loses infertility from doing their spared across all users. So all the headers continue to add cattle into the common line, lose all productivity. If the cattle were held in common, of course the metaphor would not work. This shows that it is private property in cattle and individual utility mechanism behavior that lie at the heart of the problem, rather than the common property character of the results. He set this example to highlight the way thinking about the commons has all too often itself become enclosed within far too narrow a set of perceptions. He used a small schedule examples of private capital operating on a common pressure to exploit a global problem, but I think it is too impossible to resolve one schedule does not hold at another schedule. So let's say in the gender schedule of things in the global level, some sort of enclose is often the best way to preserve certain kinds of valued commons. Strict like the strict limits on Amazonia, for example, they're great for protect both biodiversity and the culture of indigenous populations as part of our global nature and culture commons. But the question of the commons we must conclude are contradictory, and it's always contested. Behind these contestations lie conflicting social and political interests. He and Harvey cites Kirtland Commons in Arizona as an example of how wealthy people they like to surround themselves in gated communities and create inclusive shared resource. Another commons we can see is the public space. Like the Three Square, like Athens, Cairo, and Barcelona. These three squares, they are very public space that they can become an urban commons as people assemble there to express their political views and make diamonds. So the commons is not to be controlled. Therefore, as a particular kind of things, asset or even social process, but as an unstable and malleable social relation between a particular self-defined social group. So this is two urban common, there is a real problem here. As Harding's original morality tale, it's not the common spirit, but the failure of individual the private property rights to fulfill common interests in the way they are supposed to do. Why do we not, therefore, focus on the individual ownership of the cattle and individual utility maximum behavior, rather than the common pressure as the basic problem to be addressed? The distinction for private property rights in labor theory, after all, is that they should serve to maximize the common good when socially integrated through the institution of fair and free market exchange. And then we come to the chapter of the section of chapter of art of rent. Here he started to talk about the culture accommodation. He mentioned that we cannot deny a culture; it has become a commodity of some sort. There is also widespread belief that there is something so special of a certain culture product and event, such as art, theater, music, cinema, architecture, but the boundary in between is maintained a kind of analytical separation. And then he claimed the two situations of monopoly rent. The first one is raised because of the social actor control of some special qualities resource. He used the example as a grape, the vineyard production, and then the second one he says the land resource or assets directly traded upon scarcity can be created by withholding the land resource or asset from the current use and then speculating on the future value, which are these we know the example as a famous painting from Picasso, or as this painting what I took the Mona Lisa in Louvre. And then he mentioned the two contradictions of the monopoly rent. He used a very interesting example of building Disneyland. The people actually did not see what's better in the city, but they were kind of enjoying the Disneyland experiences. So these two pictures is one from the Tokyo and one in Paris. Basically, they look the same. And he stated that the contradiction here is that the more easy marketable such item becomes, the less unique and then special they appear. And then another contradiction would be the competition, as those big brand kind of like a monopoly companies that taking over control of the business. And then he sort of talks us through the adventure in the wine trade, which he made example of. First of all, he was saying the name of the wine and of these kind like champagne, and these are all from the French words, and almost saying this. The Europe wine industry led by the French and seeking the perceived monopoly rent by the insist upon the unique virtue of land, climate, and then tradition. Also, distinctiveness is a product certificate by a name. And then he mentioned a brand from Australia. It used to have the name on their label, but after the government agreed to wipe it out, not continue using it because of that reason. And then he also talks about the entrepreneurialism, the research of monopoly is more about tourism, tourist city, the development of tourist city. And he also had a very good source of a city of a god, describing this kind of a tourism, the scene of this village. The people comes to kind of like visiting it. And then he also talks about the collective symbolic mark of distinction and monopoly rents, which is in the same city, the blends of the old part, like for example the Gaudi city in Barcelona, and then stand the same city with this tower from Norman Foster. Which is kind of like a contradiction. And then he also mentioned the city branding, where it becomes a very big business, which is they title the city with something special, and then to attract more people come to visit. And then they also has a monopoly rent of a space of hope. He especially mentioned in Brazil, the kind of like the object, the Curitiba, it's called Curitiba in Brazil, has a pioneer idea of urban ecology sustainability to the point to repaying the consideration fame from the innovatives. So this as is sort of like another advertising.
The history of urban-based class struggle is stunning. This is the timeline of urban-based struggles. And I will introduce an example. On February 15th in 2003, millions of people from different countries around the world, they marched against with the war in Iraq. This shows that the global urban network is replete with political possibilities that remain uptapped by progressive movements. And so we got 2 points. One is the physical and social re-engineering and the territorial organization of these sites is a weapon in political struggles. And another is that the political parties frequently gauge their effectiveness in terms of their ability to disturb urban economics. Also, an example, it happened in the United States at April 10, 2006. The massive protests amounted to what was in effect an immigrant worker strike that effectively closed down economic activity in Los Angeles and Chicago, and had serious impact on their cities as well. So I think it shows the political and economic power of this organization of the migrant. They leave behind 2 major but perhaps significant achievements. The fundamental of permanent immigrant workers alliance and new tradition in the United States of celebrate May Day as a day to march in support of the aspect of life. And this is exactly what Marx said. Marx argued that the classic relation of domination in production had to be displaced by the associated workers controlling their own production process and processes. This will perpetuate the long history of political pursuit of worker control. It's usually translated as self-management, worker cooperated, and like. The traditional type of factory proletariat has been repeatedly diminished. From the picture, we can see the difference before and after. In the past, they stayed in the same factory, and now they have different units, like lorry unit, driver units, teacher units, traffic worker units, and so on. The difference is that lorry drivers and many workers are scattered in different parts of the city, which seems hard to organize. But on the other hand, it helps to control the whole city, and we will tell why later. Towards urban revolution, what we need is that we must control remain central to the conception of any anti-capitalist movement. Then, so how does one organize a city? The author introduced several struggles happening in Bolivia. Like this three city, like Cochabamba, Alto, La Paz, and they have the netted application of islands of associations, each one with local forms of accountability, is one of the source of the social movement's strength in Bolivia. If we will democracy as the will of the people, the cooperative side of Bolivian policy makes sense as one of the most important democratic traditions. So the second pumping compares the selectoral association of various groups in the population. The forms of organization process tends reaching far back down the supply chain for. Through these links, it is capable of easily and insistently mobilizing the insurrection capitals of surrounding peasant and rural population. And this shows the geography ties is very strong. So that's why we said it helps to control the whole city. Furthermore, the trade union and the communation forms of urbanization are not district traditions. It's not equal to the district tradition. It's equal to these four add together. Its population drawing on the trade unions, indigenous dramatic create value and practice. And this is what happened the day before yesterday in Lopeza. The mayor of the Lopeza Twitter, he said, "This is how Lopeza began. Peace dawn in peace. Our city is center of the pride and welcome the peaceful marchers. Don't wear up public decorations. Let's take care of our common interest." So we have a future moves. Maybe it's just like Marx mentioned, the world of the true freedom begins only when such material constants are left behind.
Guys, I just want to pause there for a second. We have 15 minutes before 4 p.m. and of course we've got a visiting lecturer which I will be chairing, so it's really important we get you feedback. So I want to know, are you able to summarize in this last part in within 5 minutes or so we can give you the valuable feedback?
Sure. Okay.
So
just the chapter will jump over with the event in London as well as Hong Kong, which is kind of a same situation as a conclusion. So we jump straight forward with a question he was asking. But one thing we know for certain, we can only get to, so this question, after the question, he said we can only get to right answer by asking the right questions. And then we have a bit study of our Studio A work, like my studio, which is Live with the Landscape. Basically, they're kind of like involved with the housing problem in this area. So after the post-war, there's massive housing strategy going on in this land, and somehow it's been demolished after by the several problem on employment and antisocial behavior and stuff like that. And then now they're building a new housing in this area. Which is also, I think, is semi-detached housing, and it's not very dense. It's 33 per hectare per dwell, and then which is not very dense. And then it sells for like double price than the houses surrounded. Which it comes back to the same situation in the book.
Listen, can I just stop you there? Yeah. Next week, I'm going to try and get everybody to contribute a proposal for how they could link their PowerPoint from today with their Studio A or with some other element. This is too big to go through, and I may need some careful critique. So could I get you to just submit that as a zipped PDF to us, please, and we'll have a look at it. We just haven't got
Studio A work.
Yes, please, because okay. It's fantastic, but we need to give it time. And we just we've got all the issues from David Harvey, and then we've got all the issues from your selection of these other elements. We've just overrun. I've got my thoughts on this. I think we shouldn't do the last hour as a lecture. We need the last hour amongst ourselves to work out what to do. But I don't run the course, you know. Okay. So you know, I have no idea why this is happening. I'm sorry, you know. I just would like to put the emphasis on student product. However, I really appreciate what you've done, and we're racing the clock now, and it's never good with this sort of thing. Can I take this off you as a PDF then later? All right, because I've also suggested that you've got so many stopping points along the way. You could look at the Situationist City very, very well as part of this as well. And what I really liked about the first part that you presented, it reminded me how urbanism as a study seemed to emerge from the case study of Paris. You know, everything used to go back to Paris. It doesn't anymore, because Paris is sitting there as an early arrival on planet Earth for global urbanism. So now we're just as interested in other countries and other developments. There's really almost too much with the David Harvey. I'm going to pass up my time on this. I'm going to pass it over. Does anybody else on the floor, would anyone else in the group like to say something about what you've just seen?
Peng Yu also want to finish. Her
okay. All right. So you've got another case. Okay.
Yeah, we've got another case.
Yeah, you've done the whole book.
Guys. First
and it's very hard to summarize in a capture way, because there's so much notion. It's very important going on before understanding that, and you realize how that works.
Yeah. But look, you've got the first 1,000 words of your essay. You're going to do this brilliantly. You've overrun on that. You're going to write a long essay, and then what you'd like to do is find something that compares with it. So let's, Peng Yu, if you just want to quickly show us your comparison that you think would work for you, that's all right. Show it. Okay.
The comparison of what?
Okay, just let's see your comparison. Oh, thanks for listening.
This is you. Please finish the Studio A talk first.
Yeah, actually, I add Studio A work with my criticism, because our set Let me be short. Because our set, there are many poor people to live it, but the set belongs to the rich people, and they have a renovation. But all of the rich people, they vote for, we do not need the renovation. So I have asking from the book that when the homeowner making vote decision, do we have to listen the voice of the people who really live here? Because this their living is very poor. Yeah.
Okay. Can I put in front of you? Because of one part that you mentioned, can we just focus in for you two? I want to do the same that I did in the early part of the afternoon. I've put in the Edelman book, in the Chinese City, Perspectives on the Transmutations of Empire. It's a book that is really excellent for the Harvey comparison. It's maybe a PDF, but it's got chapters on demolishing Beijing in advance of the Olympic Games in Beijing. So it really relates to your work. It's got nice short chapters, and it allows you to use both your Studio A and in the Chinese City. And I've also, of course, put up that very famous wall of the demolished signs, which is kind of well known. Everyone wants it as a poster, you know, which is right. Yeah, excellent. So I think all I can do in this terribly short time is to congratulate you on a really excellent, thorough, comprehensive respect for David Harvey. And I'm matching that by saying you can keep your life happy. Go to the Edelman book on the Chinese City. It's got some quite nice film links in there as well. You can't use all of it. It's quite a big book, but there are really good chapters, as I said, on evictions and the loss of the city, and that fantastic phrase you put up about why is it that China seems to be suffering from problems that are not of its own making. And there it is. There were the Beijing Olympic Games. China's got nothing to do with Olympic Greece. A sport like that, the Olympic flame from Athens. So, China had picked up the same problem with capital and ownership as well, obviously, because of the money it had made. So you've got, I'm recommending a very, very nice comparison, which you could manage extremely well.
Yeah, add to that. Yichen, can you just unshare your screen now? It's a little bit. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Excellent work. I mean, forensic, you don't have to prove to us that you haven't read through all of this book that you have. In fact, you've burdened yourself in the sense that you have literally page by page kind of read it, and not only read it, you've listened to what we've said in previous weeks, and you've tried to make sense of the theories that he's using. This is hard work, and it's evident there. Now, when it comes to your writing, you must remember, before becoming an economist, a political scientist, you are an urbanist and an architect. So do not get too lost in the theories of Marx and what Harvey is saying, and the presentation of graphs is what I would say to you. Try and remember your place as an urbanist and as an architect, and your voice within that, and draw from these ideas rather than kind of letting these ideas sort of dictate the direction which you go in, because you have the work there, you have the evidence of understanding that work, but you also it's horizontal in a way. What is it you find particularly interesting from this whole corpus of work? From which part can you extract and say, actually, this is the part I'm going to develop now. This is a part I'm going to add some context to. I'm going to analyze alongside in greater detail a case study or a precedent, etc. So you now have the challenge, but you have the great also foundation to work with to find a particular part of this if you want to use this to make into your essay. Other than that, I would say, really well done with the content of the work. You've really convinced us on that front. Now, you know, make it and shape it into an essay, and don't feel that you have to use every single argument that you've understood. You don't. You know, you can happily discount some. This will be in your appendix. All of that evidence of research is there. You know, you might want this for a future essay in a year, 2 years time, whatever, you know, if you choose to pursue an academic career, for example. However, right now you need to go through the difficult process of deciding, you know, what is it I want to talk about here? What are the specifics that I want to bring forward? That's all I have to say, really. So well done.
I've given you a fabulous movie for you to watch, The Big Short. Really, really excellent. Yeah. It's about the. Have you seen that, Simon?
I've seen it. Yeah,
I've seen it twice now. I
think I've seen it twice.
Yeah, I doubted it, and then I got to enjoy it right down to the crocodile in the swimming pool.
Yeah, it's an excellent.
You know, it's a really powerful movie that kind of moves in steps to kind of look at the absurdity of capital in the subprime collapse in the early part of the millennium. So if you can get, again, you can get a DVD with subtitles or however you want to do it, Netflix. Have a look at that as well. Yeah, this is an area, I think Simon's good on this, because, you know, we are dealing with really strong ideologies. When David Harvey turns up for a lecture, you know, you can't get into the room. He's a kind of, everybody wants his politics. And I think it's all of you should bear in mind in order to understand David Harvey, you have to, for the day, you have to become a socialist. Oh, that isn't easy for everybody, you know. You have to kind of step into those shoes. Otherwise, you will not understand it, and you will be adversarial. You will say that capitalism has bought me my Mercedes. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
you know, you will believe that capital has done you and your family a lot of good. Okay, so it's very, very hard to read if you can't. You have to be a socialist for the day.
Yeah, and your challenge in your literature review will be not getting lost in the kind of the depths of this. You know, these are there's mountains and mountains in the library. There's entire sections dedicated. How can you reduce this to a few, you know, various paragraphs which help outline your main, you know, which help elevate you and your story and your argument? So make sure that you stand tall and in front of this body of work, rather than, you know, lugging behind this huge sack of knowledge. You know, you've got to define that.
Yeah. There's another very serious point that's good for MA students on this course. Marxism is a methodology. If you want to write a dissertation through a Marxist frame, you can, all right, and you could manage that, you know. Hi, Colin. I'm just finishing off my Tuesday class, but I'll get back to you in a second. Is that all right? Cheers. Bye. So to get my point back again to that. This Marxist frame is really interesting. When he was just a recent postgraduate, David Harvey realized something that had never been done before. He said, workers in Marx need to control the means of production to get more profit and have happier lives and not be oppressed and not be killed by their place of work. Well, what about the town as a factory? What about the city as a factory? Why don't the people own the means of production? Why don't they have rights to the city? So it was a fantastic paradigm shift. And he's lived it ever since, you know? It's really great. It works really well when you've got that genius idea that it's not the workers in the factory, it's the citizens in the town. And if you want to use that as a framework and absorb it for your work, you don't have to be a socialist to write like this, you know? You can have a gold swimming pool, for all I know, with an alligator in it. But it's a great way of expanding your horizons inside urbanism. Because as you saw from today, we've got everything: sociology, politics, economics is bundled together. In fact, I'm not really sure that we've seen any cities at all.
I'm afraid I have to go now because I'm
Yeah.
chairing this next talk, which we've got. We have run out of time there, so we could probably summarise in an email, which was sent out to you. Just
I think, Simon, this is for next week. We're going to be doing some tutorials on what people would like to do with their essays. So
yeah.
I'll rewrite that document and we get it out to them.
Please, everyone, send their documents if they haven't already. So the guys from today, please send them an email to David and I. And also, we're missing one from the first week, which I believe is Trang Yan and Yan Hao Pan. Please send your work through as well.
And will you put? Will all of you put your posters in Moodle? Okay, upload your poster into Moodle. We have to bundle that into our mark scheme.
Okay.
But hey.
We're going to leave it there. Well done. Great. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm
well
sorry
done,
we've had to rush to this end. Urban Research Lecture Theatre. We'll see you there. Goodbye, and we'll see you next week.
See you in a bit.